Everyone, hello and welcome to WatchHaus, the Game House's official Overwatch talk show, podcast, audio, video, multimedia, skit, segment, news, analysis show? Whatever, man. Whatever you want to say it is. That's what it is. I am joined, as always, by Goopy Canoopy and a new guest, because, update, by the way, Katrina is really busy having a big girl job and moving to the city and like making money and being successful and doing what she wants to do with her life, which is great. So she's taking a couple weeks off from this because she's like, if she had more stuff to do, she'd probably explode. And I get that. I feel that. So she'll be back. She's not dead. She's not gone. We haven't kicked her out hard yet. She will be back. But for now, we're going to be rotating through an interesting collection of guests. This week is Norchetto here, the Atlanta guy, as you know him.
I'm the Atlanta guy.
He's right. Probably got a cooler name than that, but that's what I went with.
No, I like that, actually.
I'm going to use that. That's totally fine then. You're the Atlanta guy. And we're going to be Connor actually explained to us what we're going to be doing. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but it's been a couple weeks. So explain to the fans at home what we're going to be doing for the next few weeks, the next few episodes of WatchHaus.
Yeah, so a lot of it is just the fact that we're about a month away from the season. The season starts in 20-something days, 24 or 5
24 days, 24. If you count today.
Yeah, and so part of what we want to do here at the WatchHaus is give you all a primer to help you understand essentially what teams are in the Overwatch League. If you haven't been a fan before, you can watch these episodes, we think and we hope, and learn about the teams, their players, coaches, financial kind of backing, logo design, all those sorts of things, and be able to pick a team to root for or just appreciate the league in general. And for the Overwatch League inaugural season fans who are coming back this season, we hope this will be an interesting way to see what your team did over the off season. If you were away, not watching contenders, which you should, come on. But if you couldn't, we hope this is a way to figure out what your team's been doing in the off season and how they're looking as far as strength goes into OWL 2019. And so each week we're going to be looking at 5 different teams, just going alphabetically from Atlantic all the way down and Pacific all the way down, just to give equal time and a good amount of in-depth analysis into these teams, because there's a lot going on with a lot of these teams.
If you watch the Watchpoint preview 2-hour and something special, we're basically going to be doing that, but it's our stuff instead of their stuff, so it's better. If not quite as shiny and full of cool B-roll footage and ESPN analysts. It's us, though. It's cool. You guys like us, right? Right? Yeah. Okay.
Still totally an anime. Still totally an anime.
Yes. And the Overwatch League is still an anime. So
absolutely.
This is actually an anime review show now. There you go. That's another thing we can call this.
Yeah.
If we're all into it.
It's like IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, but for Overwatch League anime. That's basically what WatchHaus is this
time. Let's just compare it to everything. It's similar to everything in many ways.
I think so.
If you're a fan of anything, you will get something out of this show.
I would have to agree.
Yeah, that is... Wow.
I think we just wrapped it up.
Yeah, you hit me with that.
I think, we can just call it.
That's good.
All right, guys, have a good night.
All right,
it's been great.
Thanks.
Let's get into our first and most consistent segment called Reset Your Watch, where we just talk about what we've been doing. It's been a couple weeks. We should have plenty to talk about. Connor, start us off.
Okay, yeah, it's been a few weeks, like Dibble said. So in the past couple weeks, I got to do an interview with Naga from First Gen, right before the NA Contenders Season 3 playoff started. It was a great interview. Big fan of him, just from Team Denmark and his past play with Goats. Got to do that interview, and then got to do my playoff power rankings. I've been doing weekly power rankings for NA Contenders each week. It's been probably the most consistent thing I've ever done in my entire life, so there we go. And so wrap that up for NA Contenders. It's so sad and empty not doing them each week now, which is so sad. But then did a piece on the, it's a 2-parter, second part's coming out tomorrow, on the top 10 Overwatch League newcomers coming into the league, players, coaches, managers without Overwatch League experience who are making their entry into the league, ranking those, trying to figure out who's going to make the biggest impact for their team. So that's what I've been up to. Our guest, Norchetto, who, as a part of Resetting Your Watch, Norchetto, maybe introduce the chat to who you are and what team you're covering and what you've been up to.
Absolutely. So my name is Norchetto. That's what I go by anyway. You'll never know my real name, probably later. But I've been making videos about the Atlanta Reign pretty much since they announced the team was coming. I was a huge fan of the league in season 1, and then when the Atlanta team was announced, that's my region, my location. I got super excited and started making videos, and that's been happening since about July. I've had a bunch of people, following me, watching, giving me great feedback, and it's been wonderful. So I've basically just kind of been following the news and keeping as many people updated with the Atlanta Reign as possible. That's gotten me into watching NA contenders a lot more and following the tier 2 scene a lot more. So just came off of the whirlwind of a season 3 NA contenders with Atlanta Academy, and their amazing performance coming in second for that, and then actually, giving Fusion a fight for their life there for a little bit. Beyond that, right now we're just kind of in a waiting period. There's not a whole lot of news, so I was talking with the fantastic folks at the Game Haus, and I'm going to be, partnering up with you guys. That's one of the reasons I'm here right now, is to do more stuff with y'all, as well as maybe some writing, some beat reporting, and throw up some news about the Atlanta Reign for y'all's site. But yeah, I'm going to be covering the Reign, and hopefully be going to a lot of events in town and covering that stuff as well.
And you guys are getting a homestand, right? That's the last.
We are getting a homestand.
Very nice.
Yeah, we're getting one in July, and that's as soon as we find out news about that, that's going to be huge. But we've been planning, like me and a few other community members have been planning a first game watch party, so that'll be a good opportunity for a lot of the fans that have already been getting ready and getting behind Atlanta to kind of group up. But I'll go into that when we start really covering the Atlanta making a break into the league. So
yeah, did we we'll do it after regardless, but did we list the teams we're going to be talking?
I don't know if
I don't think so.
did explicitly.
Okay.
No.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
It's time for me to talk about what I've been doing.
What you been doing?
I've been doing way too many things. I started school in the past couple weeks. I'm going over my author page. I finished up the Watch Around the World series with DPS. Talked about some contenders level players you should be keeping an eye on, all of whom did pretty well, just saying. Totally called that right. I posted a definitive Overwatch podcast guide. This is on that guide because self-plugs are great. I love it a lot.
Yeah.
That did pretty well on Reddit. People do want video content, which is why we still do this show. So it was fun to go through and find shows that I liked and new stuff for me to keep an eye on to kind of up my game as a content consumer and producer. It's nice in this scene that I can still enjoy reading and watching and listening to stuff despite making so much stuff, because usually you would expect to kind of burn out on it, but not here. That's pretty nice. I also interviewed Rob Dab, HOU, and Aang from First Generation and then from Windstrike. And I think that's about it. I finished Contenders OW coverage because I run that account with some help. Contenders is over. Crab emoji. Thank God, because it was getting a little dicey there with school and everything. Just it was hard. It's real hard. My girlfriend got mad because I do broadcast GG stuff. So that started at 11 a.m. That finished, I immediately transitioned into South American Grand Finals. And as soon as that finished, I had a 10-minute break before Australian semifinals started. And that didn't finish until 10 p.m.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the whole time she was like, hey, are we going to eat or do anything? And I was like, well, this series that I'm now analyzing is going to go to map 5, and that's a shame, but it didn't. Basically, I've been busy, and after this, I'm still going to be busy. I have news coming soon about a couple projects that I'm joining, maybe. One of them is a for sure, and one of them is a maybe. Both of them are amazing. You guys are going to hear about it soon. And I'll also be getting some interviews. I'm going to interview Hardest. I was going to interview him to finish out my coverage of 1 Point, but he messaged me at 2 a.m. last night, which was probably a reasonable hour for him. He was like, hey, I was going to answer these, but now I'm going to be on a new team. Do you want to just talk about that when that's official? I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. So we're going to do that instead. So keep an eye on that. We're going to get like the first news from him about his new team and how he feels about that wherever he's going. He didn't tell me where. Don't ask. I don't know. I haven't asked him yet. But wherever he's going, we're going to hear about it first. So keep an eye, as always. And I've also picked up a couple little contenders news thingies. I broke that report on Toronto Academy. I know a couple more things, but I'm going to work on like turning it all into something worth reading first before I just throw stuff out there like certain people. So keep an eye. But yeah, otherwise just business as usual.
Nice, dude. Well, we've all been super busy, and so has the Overwatch community in general. In particular, just before we get into these teams and the primer, we just want to kind of cover some news, housekeeping really quick, just to mention it so that it's out there. There was a controversial move made by XL2 Academy recently, where the team has decided to host local tryouts in an effort to increase their, I guess, local interest, fill the teams with local New York players, and in doing so ended up cutting a few players on their team, big name players like Mangachu and Logix and Goliath.
Sorry, Mr. Logix.
Yeah, man, rip. So, real quick, what's you guys' take on this? This is a big deal.
Okay, so I have a crazy conspiracy theory here that the New York Excel has gotten a little bit of feedback from like, oh, you have a full Korean roster and stuff, and you're not representing the region, and they're just going, okay, we'll represent the region contenders, and we'll show you what happens, because we don't know any big name players from New York proper, and like a decision like this just seems a little bit crazy if you're trying to keep up with. That's coming from other players in a contenders and stuff like that. So it just seems like a strange move that's mainly focused more on the PR coming from the academy team than actually trying to maybe build talent, you know?
Yeah. I will say we do know of at least one big name player from New York. His name is Raucus. He plays for the Houston Outlaws. They're not going to get him on XL2. It's not. I don't think that's going to.
Well, we know two big name players because
right, yeah, I knew there was a couple more. Oh, right, yeah,
Huge
big
name.
Brain player, yeah,
Huge brain.
Number one,
well
he's just
known
consultant.
for his extensive playing experience.
Yes,
number one XL2 player. That's it.
I miss Slasher as a caster in the early monthly melees with Huck before ZP showed up. That's where Slasher earned his name for the first time. That would be really interesting. I know he's very interested in this move. Not necessarily in a fully supporting it sort of way, but he's very interested to see where this is going, and he did apply. Yeah. He will definitely be involved in the locals process at some point, because before anything, he's passionate about his state, which is cool.
Yeah.
I don't like this move. I get it. I really do. You know what you could have done to do the same thing, but without gutting your roster and cutting 4 very deserving players? Make a team called XL3. Okay? It's an open division team. You fill it with New York players who have proven themselves at locals. You run them through open division. You give them access to coaching services, maybe even a little money, whatever. They build up. They can try out for XL2. They get signed to XL2. Look at the local boys moving on up the path to pro. The legit way, the way you're supposed to. There was a big argument whose details I cannot divulge because they were in a very private channel that people have gotten in trouble for sharing recently. And it basically involved the main naysayers of this deal who were discussing it with an XL2 executive were saying the problem is that these guys have earned their spot. You have fired them and will be replacing them with people that have probably never played at this level in their lives. Yeah. There are a couple like tier 3 level New York local players, Rena, Javion, Hypnot, but nobody, I hate to say that because it's mean, but nobody knows those guys. They have played on a couple teams that have not done that great, and now they'll be signed to XL2 working with Tizzy, HOU, and that's who else? There's one more, right? That might even be it. It might just be those two. No. Let me pull this up.
It might just be those two.
With people who have a lot of experience, and they'll have to work with these people who don't know what a rotation. Oh, it's and Jer. They kept Jer.
Yep. Okay.
So these guys who have been playing in high-level Tier 2 tournaments and in teams for years, suddenly you're going to have to teach these like Tier 3, Tier 3.5, or even Tier 4 local players how to understand high-level Overwatch concepts. And that'll be the coach's job too, but like, what a gap to have to bridge for this team. It's not going to go well. XL2 is going to have a terrible season next season, and that's when relegation is on the line. This team will be relegated. Players will be fired again. The locals will be fired again. The guys who are stuck, the good guys, will go insane and desperately try to go somewhere else. The coaches and managers who, amazingly, will not be able to turn these local players into experienced Tier 2 stars in one season will probably also be fired. And this experiment will end. I get it. Local promotion is great. Everybody loves it. But it's not effective in the way they're doing it.
Right.
That's my take.
Right. I think what it is from my take, and then we can hop on to something else. But for me, it's a reapproaching what T2 means, what the T2 system is for. XL2 is deciding that their philosophy of it is local players. We're going to sacrifice skill to develop our local scene in T2. We've seen what works in T2 with Fusion University. That's an effective T2 model as far as success goes in the region. But like we've seen with Overwatch League teams, like the Houston Outlaws, for example, weren't trying to build, it would seem, a championship team for Season 1. They were trying to build a Western team to appeal to Western players, build up a fan base, sell a lot of merch, good stuff, good money. I see this move as more like that, and while I don't like it, I'm not a huge fan of this move either. I guess I can see the angle because they're probably going to save a lot of money because they don't have to pay these players who are really good player contracts. They can play local Joe New Yorker 4100 SR a contract fitting of that skill tier player. So it's probably a money move and has other philosophies attached to it, but that's kind of just my take on it. Is it's just an angle of how to do T2, and this is what they're saying they want to do.
And that makes sense. I mean, like, like you were saying, there's more than one way to look at it. Yes, you can build a team for, success in the league and getting as far as you can, or you can look at it as an opportunity to build the fan base and build PR. And when you have people who are, look, if you want top tier Overwatch, we have top tier Overwatch. If you want us appealing to the local fan base, we have that too. So I get it. I also don't like the move, but I get it. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll transition us here.
Yes.
So we can actually get into the thing we've been talking about. We're gonna go over, I believe it's 6 teams today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 teams. Sorry.
Good.
So these teams are Atlanta, Boston, Florida, Houston, and London today. And we'll do a couple more every week. Each of us is assigned a team. We're going to talk about what we like about them, where we think they rank, if we like the team, individuals on the roster, how that roster stitches together, just how we feel about them and where we think they're going to be this season. First up is Atlanta. Obviously, I will be talking about that.
Clearly, yeah.
Just kidding. Norsetto, take us away on this one. Let's talk about the Atlanta Reign. What do we got?
So let's talk about the Atlanta Reign. So first off, it surprised a lot of people that Atlanta was showing up in Season 2. A lot of people were looking at maybe Chicago, maybe Seattle if we're getting another NA team. And I definitely support places like Europe, South America, and other regions getting teams. So keeping it limited was good. And, I was honestly surprised as well we got Atlanta. Clearly I was wanting an Atlanta team. But just to kind of give some credence to the decision, there's a lot of media coming out of Atlanta. There's a lot of tax breaks for businesses in Atlanta for leaning into new media creation, games, One of the contenders up against Blizzard in the hero shooter genre is Paladins, and High Res is based in Atlanta. There's a lot of conventions in Atlanta. So the team itself coming together and materializing in Atlanta is makes sense when you really look at it, even if it surprised people. And it's backed by Cox Enterprises, who is a media conglomerate. They own a lot of newspapers, television stations. I think they hold the ownership of like Kelly Blue Book and stuff like that, as well as Cox Communications, which is TV and internet and things like that. So there's a lot of money there, and they're not the first player that's been there. Philadelphia Fusion with Comcast Spectrum. Yeah, Comcast got into the game to begin with. So that industry has already dipped into financing a team. So there's a lot of local money from Cox coming into this team, and Cox has also done things that really appeals to building up the community. They do a lot of community events, so there's a lot of strong backing for why this team exists to begin with. As far as the team itself and who they are, we have a very, very diverse roster. I think it's the second most diverse in terms of nationalities. I think Philly's got us beat. 6 different countries are represented in the players. It jumps up to 9 different countries when you add in the coaching staff. And yeah, we pull from 4 different contenders regions as well. So just to kind of go over the players, from North America tank line, we have Gator, who we've been seeing with ATL Academy. He's a 2-way player. He plays main tank, and he's been really, really strong in leading ATL Academy. He was formerly on GOATS. He helped develop the whole GOATS meta that we have seen infiltrating all of the games we've been watching, but it's been getting better. But yeah, he's been there for I know he has a lot of presence in game, and like I said, he's a 2-way player, so he's been really supporting the academy team. We have from Korean contenders, from Element Mystic, we have Pokpo and Daeko, who are widely considered one of the best tank lines in the world, coming in from Korean contenders. They have made it very, very far. I know they've stumbled a lot in finals a few times, but yeah, widely considered one of the best tank lines in the world. You also have Erster, who's coming in from Chinese contenders. He's a Korean player, but he was playing in China with Lucky's in the Future, and they have a crazy rap sheet. They're a wonderful team. They've performed great last few seasons and everything. And then moving over to Europe, we have Inlair, who was formerly with Last Night's Leftovers. He's one of the LNL people we brought over. He is Russian, and he was playing actually in NA contenders on a super high ping. He's a hit scan player. We also have Masa, who came from Team Giganti, and he is an absolutely incredible main support player. He's crazy on Lucio as well. Kodak he was on Six Snakes, played in contenders. A lot of people consider him a rival for one of the best Zenyatta players in the world. And then I feel like I'm forgetting someone. Who am I? Am I forgetting someone?
I think you covered all the players, including anyone who would be controversial. I think you got them all. Yeah.
All the controversial ones. Yeah. So no. Let's touch on it. Let's go, dude. Let's go. So Defran, the elephant in the room. I'm not calling Defran an elephant. Sorry, dude. He's so we got Defran, considered one of the most mechanically skilled players in the world. He has a controversial history. But I'll stick up for Defran. He has come out and said that he's bipolar, and a lot of his actions associate around that. But with the support he's been getting, and with a lot of the things he said, it's clear that he is, working to have the correct support structure to be able to kind of handle that. And if there is a problem with Defran, we do have Inlayer. We have another hit scan player. But at that, we have. I think Defran is going to be a great addition to the team. We might not seeing him play as much as Inlayer. We haven't heard anything about any suspensions or punishments for any of his past activities, any throwing or anything like that, any serious toward play. But I'm expecting maybe a little bit of a suspension for that, since we've seen it with some other players. I expect him to come in on a specialist. He's been playing a lot of Zarya in prep for if GOATS is the thing to do, and he's been getting a lot better on his Widow, so a lot of more hit scan stuff. But we have a very, very strong team, And the biggest issue with the team is going to be communication, and it's going to be the ability to communicate ideas and positions fluidly with one another. And a lot of people see this as a detriment, which in some ways it definitely is. But you got to look at teams that have already had this and performed well, like Fusion. Philadelphia Fusion has the most diverse roster in the league. And while they had a little bit of a slow start, when they got that worked out, they ended up coming in second in season 1. So I think if we can get a lot of the kinks worked out of any communication problems, that Atlanta is actually in a spot with all of the talent they have and all of the knowledge that they bring from the different regions of contenders. I think they have an opportunity to really outpace a lot of people's expectations.
I will say I'll throw something. He would say that Atlanta probably invested very smartly in one of the best translators they could get, and got Dongmin, who kicks ass and has a lot of experience.
In this house, we love and respect Dongmin.
And that's right, exactly. And I think they've gotten an early enough start that I'm pretty optimistic on that. I will say. I think teams now get it. They've got the idea. They know what they need. They've talked to these people who have the experience, and those people have told them, I'm sure, hopefully, this is what's going to happen. Here's what you can do to make that easier on yourself. And Atlanta, which I know this is a point you'll get to, certainly have the investment capability to make sure that they have the support staff they need.
Yeah. And that's definitely something I wanted to touch on, is that I think we talked a little bit in the last couple of days about a few disappointments from season 1, in how teams were handled by the owners and how they were managed. And I was worried going into, obviously, when you have a team up that you want to support, you want them to take care of the players and for it all to work out. And all of the stuff I've seen them doing and how much they've been investing into making sure these players are taken care of, that they get the talent, that they are housed well, because I know the tour's not out, but God, that house, when you see it, guys, it's crazy.
Did you get to look at it early? Did they
no comment.
Are you all right? Oh,
no comment. So yeah, they are. I know they have a chef that they hired, and looking at Philadelphia Fusion, who spent the money to not just get apartments, but actually got a house and got it decorated, got a chef and everything. I think those things pay off, and I'm really excited to see what they are able to do with all of the resources they're being given.
Yeah, and I think so. This is with the resources, with a team that might be modeling semi after Philly Fusion as far as a mixed roster goes, at least just in terms of that aspect of it. With all these things, there are some risks on the roster, but all of this has led to a lot of parity where people rank Atlanta. Partially because they're a new team, and we don't know what to do with new teams in power rankings, I think, in large.
Right.
Where do you have Atlanta kind of overall in the 1 through 20?
Well, obviously I'm going to be a little biased with my support here, but I absolutely see them ending up in a playoff spot. I think that there may be a few stumbles early on with communication, but I could definitely see them being top 8 team. So that's, I put them about probably 6 or 7.
Okay, that's fair. I think I'm kind of the same way. I'd probably it's not out of the question for people to underrate this team. I think you mentioned a lot of really good stuff. With the players and the coaches in the organization. We have former last night's leftover coach Sefi in as well. And he's I think going to bring a lot of really good stuff to the team. That with the organizational backing, I think that will get them through the long term. And I could easily see this team struggling in stage 1, but I'm kind of with you. I could see them being in the top 10 pretty reasonably.
Yeah. And Sefi, he's got he was on Shock. He got so he has OWL experience.
He's got the experience, but San Francisco wasn't exactly that great when he was there. And
that's
that
true.
Change.
But he built the team around a lot of DPS, and I think the Moth meta kind of caught him off guard. But his coaching goes back further than that. I mean, he ran Selfless and did pretty well with a lot of the stuff they developed there. Very, very aggressive people when it comes to their team play. And honestly, you got to see a lot of that crop back up with ATL Academy, like a lot of aggression and spawn camping and stuff like that. So I'm excited. I want to see him rise up and shock they were wrong for letting him go.
I think the big thing about him is that he's a coach that takes risks. Like, you don't develop the selfless comp, which is stand in front of the enemy spawn door, without being a coach who will say, hey, just go for it, you know? And sometimes that works amazingly, and sometimes that doesn't. I think he's hopefully gained a little wisdom with his experience and knows when to risk and when to play it safe. And I think if he's got that figured out, that's what'll make him like stick. That's what'll make him be the guy for Atlanta. And I want him to be, because it would suck to see them struggle. Like, they have such this mixed roster, like Philly style system is really what I feel the Overwatch League should be at its core. You know, like, don't just go like all this, all that, all Korean, unless you're like a Korean team, London. But like, you know, like it's good to see that people are willing to dip into 4 different regions of contenders, 6 to 9 different countries. The guy who stood in spawn as the Torbjorn for a bit. But like, even that, like, you'll notice if you follow DeFran on Twitter that he's been trying to like, okay, let's see when we can stream. All right, I'm kind of struggling. I'm going to tone it down. Yeah. Like, that's way better than what we saw XQC do, you know? I don't mean to throw XQC under the bus or anything, but he tried to maintain that and failed. And I have a feeling that a lot of that with DeFran has to do with his management saying, we're going to try and work with you on this and make sure that you are not burning out, because we don't want you to end up like that, which I think is
I think there's a lot of people compare DeFran with XQC, and a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. The biggest difference is XQC is a very, very smart and a very insightful person with a few quirks here and there for sure that has this big following that he's had to kind of build a personality around. But a lot of the things he says it's very insightful about how you play the game and the state of the game. He just doesn't have a filter sometimes. There's a lack of a filter getting those words out. DeFran goes through peaks and valleys, like highs and lows, and a lot of times his destructive stuff is internal. He turns it on himself. And it ends up hurting the people around him, like his team and stuff, rather than XQC, who's very external and pushes a lot of things out. As far as acting out and stuff, there's some similarities. But from what I've heard from the people I've talked to associated with the team, DeFran is getting, you know, anytime he's having any struggles, he's, you know, being asked, are you okay? Is there anything we can help you with? He's getting a lot of support, not, you know, just yelled at or anything to make it worse. And there's a story from back when he played with Seffi with Selfless, where they were playing, and he was the house that they had for the players was just like in awful condition. He was staying next to the kitchen with a room with a sheet on the door for a door and stuff, and it just got to him. And this is an entirely different situation. So, you know, with the amount of money they're putting into the team house and the support and the staff, and just being able to let them not worry about a lot of other stuff, I think that this is a completely new situation from when he was in Selfless and when there was the self-destructive behavior.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You're so? Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys think we've covered Atlanta sufficiently? Anything else we want to throw on it, or do we want to move on to Boston?
Cool.
We can move on to Boston. That's good.
All right. I'm going to be covering Boston at least to start. I'm by no means a Boston expert, so both of you feel free to jump in at any moment you'd like. So the Boston Uprising, Season 1 team, one of you just talked about peaks and valleys. One of the most peak and valley teams we saw in Season 1. You have this massive valley, and I believe it's Stage 1 or 2 with Dream Casper being cut from the team due to his...
That was Stage 3, I will say. There, Stage 1, 6 and 4, Stage 2, 6 and 4, Stage 3, 10 and 0, Stage 4, 4 and 6.
Oh, okay. I forgot he was there for the team.
That was their lowest valley performance-wise, but they had some low valleys in terms of personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh, sure. Yeah. Basically that. Basically,
Yeah.
Dreamcasper existed, and that was a pretty low point for the
was.
team. But then he was gone, and Mistakes showed up and was really good, even though nobody thought he was going to be, and they went undefeated. So
yeah. So yeah, this kind of polarizing had a great stage 3 going into stage 4. Believe they qualified for the playoffs and lost in the first round to London or New York, I thought, or not?
New York.
New York.
New.
So yeah, so they're in a place. They had a lot of things in the off season happen as well. They only have 4 players from last season with Note, Gamsu, Kellex, and AimGod. And I believe AimGod was on the bench most of the season anyway. So Note is an incredible flex tank. Gamsu, incredible main tank. Kellex, while I love as a Dane, struggled on support last season considerably, from time to time, at least in the Mercy meta. But this is a team made up of 7 different nationalities on the starting roster. I think it's 7 anyway. I tried to count while you're talking.
And I will throw out there, AimGod was signed in April,
right?
And played after Neko allegedly started having some interpersonal issues on the team. That is our current understanding of it. I'm not gonna. We've been over that, but yeah, he was a late season signing. Did see some play time, but wasn't 100%. I think they swapped him in.
Yeah, so this is another team with a ton of regional representation. You've got a Brazilian on the team. You've got Nasi on the team. Canadian, a Dane, some Koreans, an American, and a Brit in their 2-way player fusion. So
and they all walk into a bar.
Yeah.
What happens?
Exactly. A huge rebuild. Hopefully more wins happens. So yeah, they've got an incredibly diverse roster. They are backed by the Kraft Group, who are kind of the Boston financial group and have a lot of money. And then they have Gillette and Bose sponsorships already, to, again, kind of Northeast brands. So this is an incredibly well financially backed team. One of the first teams that was invested in going into Overwatch League 2018, but has had its fair share of controversy, especially in the offseason, concerning especially Mistakes, with him not getting paid as he was kind of let go, and then not paid for a plane ticket home, allegedly. There's a lot of scandal around his exit from the team. It was a PR nightmare for them. So a lot of other players left as well, just kind of unhappy with the team. And so now they've had a rebuild. So we have new players in Blase, the American DPS player, who I think he was Blaze before, 420 Blaze, and they made him change it to Blase, which I think makes it one of my favorite names in the league. But that's a small thing. We have Color Hex, who is the Australian DPX player as well. Axiom at tank. Fusions, their 2-way player from the UK at tank. And then Alamo, I always say that name wrong.
Alamong.
Okay.
It's not pronounced the way you think.
Yep.
Didn't say everybody
it right.
gets it.
Alamong.
So yeah, this is a team that a lot of people aren't high on coming into Season 2. You just have a lot of controversy they're coming out from. New players, a lot of kind of unrest with the end of last season. Most people have them in the bottom 5, bottom 3 in their rankings. So Boston Uprising has a lot to prove, though. A lot of people underrated them going into Season 1. They, were ranked similarly low, and then went on to have the only undefeated group stage of any team in the league. So this is a team that's hard to make a judgment call on. But yeah, anything else from you guys? What do you guys think?
Okay, no, I was just gonna say, no, I'll go. This is a team I've done a lot of reporting on. I've done a lot of research into to try and understand. Like, there's so many things that we think, or allegedly, or what's really happened. I will not pretend to know anything more than anybody else at this point, because I don't. In general, I'm gonna keep them pretty low in my head. I don't think, like, the players they've signed are all mechanically very impressive. Alamong was one of the best support players in South America, if not the best. Although he's got plenty of competition. Watch South American contenders, by the way. Note's still amazing. Gamsu's still amazing. Yeah. Kellex is still pretty solid.
Yeah.
top 10 main supports. I'll keep him in there. Aim God was pretty good. We need to see more of him before I start giving him any rankings, but he wasn't bad. This team is also going to be suffering from a couple suspensions early on. Well, at least one. Sorry, I don't want to say a couple, but I know at least one. And in general, I see this team struggling interpersonally again. Huck is fantastic, very experienced, very no-nonsense, Bill Belichick, technically proficient leader, right? He is not a leader who, this is a generalization, he is not a leader who cares about his players' feelings. And that's, I don't want to say that to say like Huck is a jerk. Huck is just going to make people cry, because I don't think he's that bad. I think those are exaggerations. But I think he is a leader who will say, I signed you, go get me some results. Let's make it happen. And he gives this team the resources to make that happen, sure. But there's got to be a little more. Like, I don't think the way he is running the team is enough to keep it sustainable if any of these allegations can be believed. And if that's the case, season 2 will go just like season 1. Although their season 1 was pretty good. So,
well, the thing about their season 1 was that there wasn't a whole lot of consistency. Maybe in stage 3 when they had the 10-0, but the stories you hear about Boston in season 1 come from when Dreamcast started popping off, or when he got replaced by mistakes, and mistakes blew everyone's expectations up, or when Stryker had that huge hold at the end and won the game and was in tears. It's these big plays, where these big hero plays that come out, and that's what you really remember Boston for. And kind of couple that with some questionable management, and I feel like there needs to be something else to really kind of meld the team. Really make the team a team, and really get them to trust each other. Like you said, the skill is there, and you have these players that several players on the team that props to the scouting, that have these abilities to really turn matches around. But you got to have more. And what happened with mistakes? Like, did you guys think he deserved a shot in season 2? Because he seemed to really blow up people's expectations.
I think you would have had to have, at least. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at least at the not even at the academy level. I would think he would deserve a spot on the Uprising. I mean, he
proved.
Yeah, came in
consistently
after a horrible situation and did really well on his own, having to flex to heroes he didn't have a ton of experience on.
With minimal practice, he became owl level proficient on numerous heroes that he had no experience with before. He was a Sombra specialist, and he swapped to Widow, he swapped to Pharah, he played what his team needed him to play, and he did a good enough job. Like, they made it to playoffs.
He could have come in and done okay. He could have come in for Dreamcast and valiantly, and not gone for a big 10-0 stage, and not really helped carry the team. And that should have been good enough to at least retain some kind of a spot. But he blew it up. He did so well, and to, like you were saying, to not even end up on a contenders team, it seems so weird. It seems so weird.
And speaking of contenders for this team, Uprising Academy, to me, has one of the most promising contenders teams and staffs, and just kind of whole situation of any contenders team out there. This is a stark, I think, contrast to the stability of the Overwatch League team. You have IOStux, and you have this team that did really good last season. I think we'll do even better in 2019. It seems like they're kind of assembling their parts and kind of hitting their stride towards the end of the season, this past season. But they're really good, and Fusions is a great two-way player for them. I think that if they struggle in this next season, maybe the hope is that you have a T2 team that you can lean back on, and maybe use T2 for what we all think it should be used for, and that's developing players into the Overwatch League talent that you want for your team. And maybe those players will get contracts, maybe those coaches will get contracts, those sorts of things. So I think while I'm not, and I don't think a lot of people are super optimistic for the Uprising in Overwatch League 2019, I think trading and developing their T2 talent will be where this team can kind of rebuild and turn themselves into an organization like Philly, like Atlanta's becoming to be, that is a solid foundation organization for these players that can be more successful in the long term. So this will be, if nothing else, a very interesting team to keep an eye on for this season, just to see if they do have a fuel level implosion to start the season, how this all goes when they really, I'm sure they're already boot camping and practicing, but once they really do that intermingled with games, and if they are losing, just how that's handled among the team, I think will be very interesting to watch.
I will say as a closing note on Boston, this sounds awfully similar to the discussions we had about Boston about a year ago. And
that's fair.
Look what happened, right? So I'm sure their like social media guys are trawling for like bad-mouthing tweets and segments like this where we're kind of down on them. And when they put together something ridiculous and impossible, we will end up in some very smug Twitter post, if that happens.
It's absolutely true, because like season 1, and like we were saying, they have the mechanical ability, and they have the ability for these big hero plays. And there's a chance that season 1 could happen again, and they could just blow up and make it further than anyone expects. And if anyone can do that, Boston is the team to do it. And also props to them for picking up Fusions after the World Cup. He deserved it after that performance.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. So we'll see on this one. Like I said, this was one of the first teams that was invested in before Overwatch League 2018. The Kraft Group, I believe, believes in the Overwatch League and this team. I hope they won't be selling it like Texas Esports is with Optic and Outlaws right now. So I hope
you're getting ahead of yourself. We'll get there.
Sorry.
Yeah. By the way, I'm gonna listen to chat here. Hashtag Logics in Boston.
Yeah.
Let's go. Like as chat's been having this whole discussion, like Color Hex is suspended. Boston needs a DPS player. Logics needs a team. Let's go. Put it together. That I think would be a great move.
Just someone sign Logics, please.
Yeah.
Speaking of bad moves and Logics, let's talk about the Florida Mayhem.
Oh no! Rip.
Zing!
Rip.
Yes, chat. Teams still can sign players. I don't believe the initial window has closed yet.
Yep.
Man, Florida. My first point on our running document here is in bold, because that's how
Confirmed.
I feel about Florida Mayhem right now. I don't like this move, at least, and I'll get into the rest of the moves they've made here shortly. I don't like bringing in your admittedly experienced, but so far not too great of a results garnering coach, Martin Promise Schroeder. First German coach in Overwatch League. Congratulations. Mayhem Academy was 1-4. They beat Kungarna. Kungarna were bad. That should not yield you an Overwatch League spot.
Yeah.
That is not how this should go. I don't obviously it was cheap for the Florida Mayhem to bring Promise up from Mayhem Academy. I imagine it probably didn't cost them much of anything. That's great. His performance has not told me that guy's ready for the Overwatch League. Of course.
The same problem with season 1.
Right, yeah. Of course, we are not in the room here. We do not know what his attitude is like or how that might be good for the Mayhem or anything of that nature. I'm just going off the eye test here because that's literally all I have. It doesn't look like that was a smart move. This looks like Florida is trying to bring in someone to replace Ryder or Artuder or whatever on the cheap, and I think that will give them about as much as they paid for it, which is nothing. This team has great potential, like Boston. It is a group of Korean players with a variety of experiences and success levels. I think they will also be a team that relies on hero moments in a big way. But yet again, I don't think this will be a team that will have enough consistency to get much farther than they did last season, which was second from the bottom. IOStucks, who we've interviewed in the past, by the way, go watch that on YouTube, said that Promise is like the Monte Cristo of coaches, in that he does not care about anyone else's opinion because he is confident and has the skill to back up his hot takes. I don't know. Like, I don't want to start throwing around assumptions about this guy who I've never spoken with, I've never really seen do his thing, but I don't know if that's good for a coach. It's great for an analyst or a caster or a desk guy who wants to generate discussion and put on a good show and things of that nature. When you are a coach, you need to be open to feedback. You need to be consistently successful and things like that. Promise does not scream any of those things to me right now. Maybe we will find out more and that will change my mind, but right now I'm not there. So coaching decisions, I don't know. And this team is already a team that struggled specifically because of its coaching and management problems in Season 1. These are not the changes that I wanted to see from them going into Season 2, with the exception of the Bare Hands signing, because I respect Bare Hands a lot. And I think that will really, really help. And I think, given that he's like director of scouting and stuff, I think he's a big part of what made this roster. And I think this roster is pretty solid. I'll go over that.
I'll jump in real quick on that. So
go ahead.
It's interesting. I totally agree with Bare Hands. I think Bare Hands is by far the biggest boon this team has right now, as an entire team, I think. But he was brought in early October after Zephyr, Hagapund, Apply were already brought on. Now, he may have been in those discussions just kind of unofficially, but from what we can see right now, it looks like Bare Hands was responsible for Chris, BQB, and Swan. So those, to me, if that's really the case, if he really officially just handled those three, that will be really interesting to see what those three players can do this season, because I really believe in Bare Hands. I think he's proven his skill before and is without a doubt going to be a great asset to this team. But I just think it'll be interesting to see, I don't know if it'll ever come out if he was involved with the other ones or not, but what these three players at the very least will do for Mayhem. But that's all I had.
I wanted to jump in on the coaching thing and just say that it blew me away to see the decision they made with who to bring up into the coaching position. I am aware from what I've heard that there were absolutely some interviews of other people for the position, and based on anything I know about who were being interviewed, it blows my mind that they decided to scrap any of the talent, and not saying that he is not talented, but scrap any of the other talent that they brought in to interview and decided to elevate their contenders coach. That's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah,
I think it just became a matter of, I'm not saying I know anybody who was interviewed for this position. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical. Let's say Made was interviewed for the head coaching position in Florida, right? Made, for all the success he's brought to Second Wind, how much of that was on him, and yes, it was, give credit to him as much as you give to the players, and Flubby and everybody else, obviously, please, give everyone the bread. Made, phenomenally successful, could do the same for Florida, but you need a visa, you need to pay for his flight, you need to pay him a salary, right? All three of those things would have to happen for Florida. Yep. That is, in terms of man hours and total organizational cost, a hefty chunk of change. Promise, living in Florida, already handled, already on staff. Boom, 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 it's done. Yeah. You pay $20 and a bag of hot Cheetos and he's there, right? It's just a matter, I think, those coaches are great, but we could just bring in this guy with past experience without having to pay him. I really think that's what it boiled down to.
Weren't we just learned lessons from Season 1, though? God.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's exactly where it gets frustrating. It's understandable. That doesn't mean I agree with it. Yeah. I think it would totally be worth the investment to change it up, bring in someone with some more proven success than Mineral or Ryder or Promise, and try and get some results out of it. But hey, I'm not making those decisions.
Yeah.
So let's get into this roster because I know I'll take forever to go through all this otherwise. So DPS, pretty solid core here. Saya player is easily one of the best Widowmakers in the league. Throwing that out there. It's there. Top 5. Oh God, there's so many. That's a whole episode in and of itself. Saya player, very good. BQB, great run with X6. Also very good. Apply, pretty solid. I like him. Two-way player will probably see more time on Academy than the Mayhem itself. That's fine. Comes in just in case. Tavik, flexible, very, extremely. But last season was... it was meh. It was just meh. Thoroughly meh. Tank line, Zephyr, tons of high-level experience. Very seasoned player. Cloud9 NA, back when Cloud9 was NA. Moved to Cloud9 KR. Moved to Lunatic High. Moved to the Soul Dynasty. Plenty of leadership potential. Don't know if any of that will show up. No idea. But there's a chance. Could be pretty good. SNT, former awesome guy. The most thoroughly average main tank player the league has ever seen. Was on par with Swoosh, who used to be a Genji main. Just going to throw that out there. Swan's pretty good, though. Support line, I think, is one of their strongest spots, and just as well because Zeppe and Zebasai sucked it up last season. Though Zeppe is doing quite well with Giganti now. Wonder what the change was there. Hagapun, very good, honestly. Like, overshadowed by Closer, who's now on Dallas Fuel. Oh, I feel so good about that. And Bedosin and things like that when he was on the Spitfire. But his time with GC Busan in the pre-Overwatch League era was impressive. There is a reason that GC Busan beat Runaway on Map 7 way back in the day, and Hagapun had a lot to do with that. Lots of great shots, lots of great ult management, lots of shot calling potential. Like that move. Chris, also one of the more experienced main supports in Korea, worked with Meta Athena, which was a fantastic organization until they got relegated for some reason, and now they're not really doing too hot. I don't know what happened there. Probably just because they finally lost all their good players because so many teams had picked them up. But Chris is good. I think Chris is still pretty solid. So the roster in general still has potential, but a good roster needs good management. We will just have to wait and see how that one goes.
Yeah.
That's all I got on Florida.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. It seems like it's a team that was assembled to be Korean, mostly, and then Tavik. And then, you assembled it to be Korean. I don't know if there was even a lot more in mind. It seems like from the eye test, asterisk, outside of it just being Korean. And there was a good thing brought up in the chat here. It's an entirely Korean, mostly Korean team with no Korean staff. And you'd really think that would be important. But nope. So that's funny. But I'm not super high on this team. My personal power rankings or whatever, they're 20th, and I think that's where they are for a lot of people. I don't know what you guys think. Where do you guys have them ranked this season?
I got burned. I was expecting a much different coaching move, so they're kind of middle of the pack for me. And I still think the talent's there, but just some very, very strange decisions.
Yeah. So
they're already disappointing me, and the season hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, it sucks. We're on such a negative tear with these two teams. We have Boston and all the stuff, and then you have Florida, and it's like, what are you doing? Just hire Made. And it's like, come on,
Boston.
guys.
Boston's struggling and has the chance to be a dumpster fire, but they also have the chance to be really, really good. Florida is a dumpster fire, but also has the chance to be not necessarily last place, maybe second.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Yikes.
I don't see Florida overcoming their management problems as much as I would love to.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening.
And that's the most frustrating part.
Yep.
That's
exactly.
The most frustrating part is that it's nothing about the players. They have some talent. It's that the management just it doesn't seem like anyone who's managing the managers, who's keeping everyone in the right, place and getting the right people on board. It's
The
not
thing
happening.
is, too, this is something we didn't really cover, not something that's like on their Liquipedia page or whatever. But they got a new like organizational president. They supposedly swept like all the old like org management staff outside of the team as well. So on top of whatever changes we've seen just for the Mayhem, the organization itself has also had some changes. Maybe, but I'm not super convinced because nobody in that new management staff said, hey, let's get a successful assistant coach or literally any Korean person to help with our Korean roster. Just, they don't seem like good moves at first glance. I don't know. I'm not confident.
Yeah. Well, to move to something I'm also not super confident on, it's the Houston Outlaws. Oof.
Really?
Oof.
I'll say I'm mildly confident about the Houston Outlaws. As an Outlaws fan, I am mildly confident on them. So, the Houston Outlaws, as I just said, were the picture of average in Season 1. I think every stage was 4-6, 6-4, 5-5. They finished 1 or 2 games out of the playoffs. Also, a lot of the Houston fans like me will say it's because they had the hardest schedule in the league. They never got a break off from NYXL or London the way the scheduling worked in Season 1. But Houston, like we were talking about pre-show, is kind of the Western team in the league. They're assembled of all American players. Mostly, I think there's Bonnie's Canadian, and Spree is Belgian. Yeah,
Belgian.
Belgian.
And
Yeah.
Arhan. So not all
The flags look so similar
at all. Yeah. So, but mostly like a Western American style team. It's kind of like the pretty boy team, where it's like these are the guys we're gonna put on the Overwatch League posters, aka Jake, and we're gonna sell a lot of merch and up the ante, green wall. This team's getting fans. It's awesome. Go Houston. Without a lot of material success as far as wins and losses go. The team though financially is owned by Optic Gaming CEO, and it's sponsored by T-Mobile and Turtle Beach. So those are two. All of that combined would think gives them a really solid financial backing, along with being owned by Texas Esports, who, as we just saw from ESPN today, is looking to sell Optic and the Outlaws organization for like $150 million or something.
It's a majority stake. They have the majority stake, and they want to sell those shares for $150 million.
Yeah,
which is a lot.
So anytime you hear sell, you have to ask why that's happening. It could be that they don't see the Overwatch League is going to be a fruitful investment anymore, so get out now. Or it could just be that they want to invest those resources elsewhere. I don't know what it's like to have $150 million to invest in something, so I won't pretend to comment on that.
Oh, you don't?
No. Well, I'll take over since I had no.
Yes, please.
It smells like broken here.
So yeah, the team is managed. Now he's in full GM kind of mode. Is Flame. Ton of great Overwatch experience.
I like that move a lot.
Yeah, I totally
I
agree.
like that a lot.
So I think that is where he's suited best. I think he'll have a really good impact in that role. But kind of going through the roster, we've got Linkser, the Finnish DPS player, plays a lot of hit scan. He was said last season he had this big mantra around him as the best Widow v Widow Widowmaker in the league. He was best in the clutch moments where he had to focus with everything in his face and shoot another Widow in the dive meta and in the double sniper meta. So that was an incredible thing, but he's also really streaky. We've seen him have horrible days. It looks like he's just like scared out in the game. As much as you can translate being scared through a video game, it looked like it with Linkser. You hate to see it. Then you have Jacob Lyon, who has gotten into casting now. That's cool. Total, kind of the pretty boy representation of the league, as it is. Goes to all the IOC meetings with the Olympic Committee with Gregory, and is one of the kind of the ambassadors of the league. That's what he spent a lot of his off-season doing. Known for his junk rat play, but in Season 1 he was also kind of the team's tracer player and was kind of forced into that role, and it became a meme that Houston just needed a tracer player, and they really struggled through the dive meta with that. So
Can I share a Jake story?
yeah.
Okay. He was hanging out in the lobby of Blizzard Arena, like by the merch, And of course, everybody's out there mobbing him for pictures and stuff like that. And I had my Seagull mask with me. I go, Jake, for all the rivalry our teams have, would you take a picture of me or with me as Seagull Man? He was like, now I know your face. You've ruined it. And I was like, oh no. I just like, I guess I did, huh? And he was like, now I know who you are. I would have rather you had come out in the mask, and I kept not knowing. It was like we were at Disneyland. It was like, hi, I'm Mickey Mouse. Like,
what a weird first thing to say to someone you've never met.
Yeah. Well, no, we
You broke his childhood sense of wonder.
Like in the hallway in the media area. I was like, oh, what's up, Jake?
Okay.
He's like, oh, hi, journalist person. But then I was like, me, Seagull Man, picture? He goes, you've destroyed it. You said Santa Claus isn't real and that the Tooth Fairy doesn't put the money under my pillow. I'm just like,
oh man,
dear God.
That's hilarious.
All right, fine then. And then I left. Sorry, that's
how dare you do that to Jake?
You're good.
Yeah, I guess. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know it was that serious. It's cool though. It's cool.
So go keep it on with the roster. I mean, Jake is a personality we could talk about again for an entire episode. So that's a hilarious story. But to round out the DPS, they've got Arhan, who has experience all the way back to Apex on Genji. He was really good as a Genji player back in the day and had his heyday. I forget what team he was on. I should know that. He was in Apex Korea.
Meta Athena.
There we go. Yeah,
a lot of Chris is from and BQB.
So yeah, we have him. And then you have Dante, who transferred over from San Francisco, and their DPS factory that they have in San Francisco, where they just produce DPS players very frequently. So you have all four of those. Not sure who's going to start. You could make a case for any two of them, I think, and be reasonably fine. The only issue is Arhan is still learning English, and I think the rest of the Outlaws are learning basic Korean to communicate with him. Then you have Tyrong, the coach, who is also Korean, so helps kind of bridge that gap as well. But moving on to tanks, you've got Muma, sweet Muma, rolled and smoked, a great main tank for the Outlaws. Then you've got Spree, which is maybe my favorite player in the league personally. Just an absolute Zarya beast on King's Row, especially in Season 1. But in his stream lately has been flexing to a lot of Diva, a lot of other off-tank, which brings us to our third tank player, Cool Matt, who is just the Diva king. Cool Matt 69 plays a lot of Diva, only played Diva in Season 1. I don't know if he even played another character once, maybe some Zarya when Spree wasn't in, but yeah. Anyway, I think that's one where Muma's going to start. But it seems like there have been some cases made recently for Spree to be starting over Cool Matt. I don't know if a lot of those are legitimate things that's actually happening, but keep an eye on that going into next season. And then support.
Would be interesting.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's literally all I had to say. That would be interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
I think if Spree has gotten significantly better at Diva, I think it really could be a good case. I mean, Diva's still so important right now, and it seems like DPS players are playing Zarya. So
it just feels like you need both.
Yeah.
Why not have Cool Matt and Spree?
That's what I would say to do.
And Muma. Or Linkster for I don't know. Yeah. Linkster played Brigitte a lot, right? But so did Muma. Oh man, there are so many combinations that could work.
Playing Brigitte at the end of last season, they still didn't have a real understanding of what you were supposed to be doing with it. Mickey a little bit.
Outside of Mickey,
yeah. Houston is a odd case. I was very frustrated with Flame last season with his comments on. I mean, you had his own players saying, yes, we need a tracer player, and he came out laughing at people saying, "No, we don't. We're fine." No, dude, you need a tracer player. You need a tracer. And to hear that the team was actually constructed, several of them without even doing any kind of trials or anything like that. They just kind of picked up as the former USA team. There was as a Houston fan, there was a couple things that I found questionable. It's gonna really depend on their synergy a lot. Like you said, Linkster can be streaky, but he has some insane talent. When he's on, he is on. If Spree can get his Diva play up to a high enough level where it's acceptable in place of Cool Matt, but he can also flex onto this super, super powerful Zarya he has. I could see that happening. I could.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, like, you mentioned Coolmat was the king of Diva, but frankly, he was not.
Right. He was, yeah.
He was top 10, certainly, but his days of dominance on the hero back in Phonography or anything like that were kind of over. There were a lot of really good divas.
Yeah.
Mickey was better than Coolmat. Seagull was better than Coolmat. Space, Fury, like, there were better. Like, he was shown up a few times. So he'll need to be on the grind. And if Spree surpasses him, then Spree surpasses him.
Yeah. I guess a caveat to that.
I love Coolmat.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Spree is great, but Coolmat is my guy. But I don't know.
I meant more King in the sense of only playing Diva. King
is
over,
then
King
absolutely
over the Diva hill.
Yes, he was the Diva guy.
Yes, but I agree. Top 10 maybe in the league, but I think with Spree having some more versatility, I think we might see him start. I think one of the biggest question marks for the Outlaws, though, is the support line. You have Boink, who's an incredible Lucio player. You have Bonnie, who plays a lot of Mercy really well. And then you have Raucus, one of the team's biggest personalities, who had to play a lot of Zen last season because Zen was in the meta and Ana wasn't. Got to play Ana in the World Cup and did really well. And so, there's a big question mark around the Houston support line. Is, if you can get them all, if you can get maybe Boink and Raucus in, where Raucus is on Ana, maybe you have a really dangerous support line there. But there's not just a standout player that's an incredible support player for this team. And so that's where, you have Season 1, 6-4 finish is basically just the Outlaws picture in my head. No changes made in the offseason outside of Dante.
Which is big.
Which is big.
They needed that.
Yeah. But I think with the few changes made and the fact that they're just kind of okay at each position, I just don't see Houston improving a ton. I mean, I could see them because there's a 7-12 margin for playoffs now. I could see them being in that realm, reasonably so. Now, if previous Overwatch League experience turns out to be this big boon for teams, and this previous synergy and communication benefits teams more than the expansion teams, maybe they have an edge there. They have great synergy, and they are one of the most cerebral and coordinated and game sense teams in the league. It just seems like there's no hero plays for Houston. There's no Boston hero play for Houston right now, and I think pending a favorable meta, they'll continue to be 6-4, probably every stage. So that's not a shot against Houston. I'm still a huge Houston fan, and I think I love the team, and I think it's a good thing, but I just don't see a lot else for this team outside of that. If I'm being too negative, though, you guys can correct me.
This is a team I want to do very well. Yeah. I would love to see Houston tear it up, go like top 5, start sticking it to some major Korean teams. Like London has still never beat Houston. In my interview with Muma at the World Cup group stage, he was like, if you look at it by like a commutative property, like high school math sort of way, Houston is the best team in the Overwatch League because the people who won the grand finals have never beat us.
Yep.
I'm just saying, like they've got the potential, right? Yep. They've shown that they can take on these major teams, but they've also shown that they can struggle. If they can do a little more of the first and not so much of the second, we could see top 8, top 10 finishes. But if it's more thoroughly average goodness, then we'll see more thoroughly average goodness, which is meh.
Yeah, I feel like they were always getting beat by like San Francisco and Florida in Season 1. And then they would clearly prep more for NYXL in London. Not having as much success against NYXL, but still really good games. Beating London and just losing to these bad teams that they would kind of just not prepare for, it seemed like.
And something we haven't considered actually in any of these rankings, which maybe we'll add, is strength of schedule and the number of games they'll have per week, or the weeks in which they'll have 2 games versus the weeks where they'll only have 1. That will so drastically change the way these teams perform. Like, no more is there, we're playing NYXL and Shanghai. How are we going to prep this week?
Yeah.
Like, that's not, it'll happen like once a stage, Like, that's so different now. And map pools And whatever the meta is, analysis this season is going to be a ton of fun and super in-depth. So stick around for that, by the way.
Yeah, I did want to point out I didn't think I'd get to do this because of encyclopedic knowledge here, but Devil, I do need to correct you. London has beaten Houston. They beat them in the stage 1
playoffs.
Title match.
You're absolutely right. They have not beaten them in a regular
season.
That's what the stat is. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
My apologies. Yes, that is true.
That was exciting. I didn't think I'd get to do it.
I've got a lot, but sometimes I lose a couple little points in.
I don't know how you keep it up there. But it's definitely one of those teams. I see them as much middle of the pack as much as I hate to say it. You're absolutely right. I would love them to make a stand and be like, we're all from the West and we can just compete with any other team. And they've shown they can do it with London, but it just doesn't come together. And I think that's going to be the same in season 2.
Yeah.
Plus, when Houston plays, I get to wear these.
Ka-chow.
America. K-Kona in chat, please. Thank you. I'm gonna wear these. I'm gonna wear these all the way through our last team. I'll try and finish this up sort of quick. We are running a bit over time. We're gonna talk about the London Spitfire, and isn't that just appropriate, given that we were just discussing them?
Yeah.
There's plenty to talk about with this team. Obviously, many points have been covered already. They won the grand finals. They had a great postseason run. Dominant. Some of the best players on their role, the whole way through. No matter how you look at this team, they're scary good. Everybody's got them in the power rankings at like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 or 4. I am kind of up there too, but we got to talk about their regular season last season. Because for all their postseason dominance and clutch capability, their regular season kind of sucked. Like the comparison to their regular season versus their postseason, I should say, is stark.
Right.
Let's say that, because their postseason is great. This is a team that played like 12 maps of Overwatch back to back to back or whatever, and won stage 1 playoffs. This is a team that beat the crap out of Philly, and after the first round, beat the crap out of the Gladiators, though they didn't have Fisher, which is still a crime against humanity. The Gladiators could have been so good. Oh, I'm so mad about that. Anyway, London, despite their regular season misgivings, I should say, are still a good team. But I can totally see that happening again. I can totally see London having a weirdly rough regular season, but still clutching it out in the postseason. That's going to be my easiest summary of the team. Like, no matter how good they are, they're going to find a way to just goof and lose to a couple weird teams. Yeah, especially, I think, the other Korean teams who are really going to prep for that. They have such a big target on their backs. So everybody's bringing their A game against this team, and they will always need to be ready. Won't always happen. Maybe. I mean, maybe the end of the grand finals was them like, oh my God, we figured it out. No one will ever beat us again. And then they go for some crazy run or something. That'd be cool. I don't think that'll happen, but it'd be interesting. The roster is solid. The moves they made this offseason, I think, were decent. Let me pull up their page real quick.
Yeah. I mean, basically, they in their moves, they tried to correct what you were just talking about. They messed around with a roster in season 1 where they would kind of sub in and out players to give players rest because the schedule was crazy, and then they kept losing with this like B team they would put in. So they were like, well, I guess we'll just cut the B team, and they literally cut everyone who did poorly on their roster, and then picked up.
And they did do much better after that.
Yes,
which is kind of what makes me think maybe that won't happen again. But the big target on the back, the constant A game.
Right.
Guard and Krillin, I think, are fantastic additions. I think Krillin will be better than people give him credit for as a relative unknown. I mean, the Jonak comparison has been made plenty of times. The Sleepy comparison has been made plenty of times. These are high-level streamers or just general like ladder warriors who did really well, obviously impressed in tryouts and got picked up. I think that's the key point. They did not just sign Krillin. They tried Krillin out, and Krillin showed up. That's impressive for a team like London, for a team that has Badosin on it, who is basically Jonak, slightly junior Jonak. Like, Krillin's got to be pretty good, and Guard was no slouch. If you watched him playing Contenders, Guard was crazy good. Back when Sombra was a little more meta, but she could come back. And in general, hit scan and like high tracking levels of play are fairly commutable. Like if you're a good Sombra, you're probably a good Tracer, you're probably a good Zarya. You know, you've got a decent pool to pull on if you can track the way Guard can track. And I think comboing that with Prophet, who just exists, Birdring, who exists so long as his wrist is okay, Gesture, Fury, like this team is still so solid.
Yeah.
So solid. Like it's hard to doubt them. As much as I want to, as much as I want other teams to like show up, as much as I want Dallas, the closer, like, oh, you trade me to Dallas? I'll make you regret that. I want that to happen. Will it? I don't know. I think this team will still be great. I still have them ranked very highly. Their regular season's going to be weird. That's all.
Yeah, I think you brought up 2 of the 3 unknowns for me. So Guard, Krillin, to me, are unknowns. Krillin just because he's relative unknown. Guard, I haven't watched him a lot. The other one is Coach 815. So we have this new head coach. I think he's a head coach.
He is. They didn't have a head coach.
Yes.
They kind of cycled through. They had an interim. Their manager helped with that. Their assistant coaches stepped up in a big way after Bishop left. They did not have a head coach all throughout that. So you're right. Interesting to see.
Yeah, I think he was brought over from MVP Space, which was a contenders team in Korea. They were formerly a trials team, but he goes way back into Apex Season 4, I think is when he started coaching, according to his Liquipedia page.
Well, beyond his Liquipedia page, and you might be getting into this right now.
Go
ahead. No, I was going to say beyond what we see on his Overwatch Liquipedia page, he was one of the most successful Heroes of the Storm coaches ever. Yeah. Ever. Like 4 straight championships in Heroes of the Storm. No team has ever been as successful in that game, and now they never will because that esport is dead. Rest in pieces. Like beyond, Monte Cristo talked about this in an episode of whatever series Monte Cristo puts out whenever he wants to, specifically defending this move from a lot of people who were pretty confused, I guess, didn't really know what his Overwatch experience had done to earn him a spot on the Spitfire. Really, it's just his like capacity as a coach in general, not so much his ability as an Overwatch coach, which I think was still good because MVP Space wasn't bad by any means. I think he will be a guy who focuses on fundamentals and making sure his team has the environment to develop their own strategies and just go nuts. Yeah. Kind of like Curry Shot, who I interviewed several weeks ago as part of 1 Point Week on the Game Haus. He knows that you don't need to coach an experienced Academy or Overwatch League level player on how to ult combo or how to ult track or how to decide how you rotate on a point, right? You just need to give them the environment to let them go perfect that on their own. I think that's the kind of coach he's going to be. And I think that's very good for a team like this.
Yeah, that's actually something that it reminds me of a little Bo Jackson story, which he played like top of his game in baseball and football, like way back when. And his coaches used to say that like when he would come up, they wouldn't tell him what to do because he was talented enough to do anything they could teach him. They would just give him recommendations on how they thought he should play, and he would go and do it. And that's always something that stuck with me about, you know, if you have such talented people, the best you can do is kind of give them a mindset. You're not going to give them more mechanics. You're not going to give them better skills, but you can give them the mindset to play under. And that's something that a coach could really provide.
I think that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the kicker. And I think that could be huge for a team like London, who I have no idea how their old coaching style worked or anything. And I can't say it didn't work because hello. But I think if his philosophy is like that, and you combine it with like Susie's management style or the other coaches coaching, that's a combo. Oh my God. Yeah. Like that's scary. So London could, if Coach 815 is able to have that sort of impact when combined with the crazy roster and the crazy management staff, this is like the anti-Florida Mayhem, you know? Yeah. Zing. Yeah. I think we're looking at good things for London still. What a hot take, right? London will still be good. Wow. But yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I think.
Well, London is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Connor.
I was just gonna say consistency is the thing this year for London. You guys basically both just said that, but they were a big hero play team last year too. I mean, look at the finals with Prophet in the Philly game on Volskaya. One of the most hero moment plays, even when Poco is diva bombing and there's all these things are happening, he still manages to win them the point. Without stuff like that, London doesn't win Season 1, so they need to get some fundamentals, like you said, Thibble, with 815. Hopefully he brings that. But if they can level off at a high level, I think they'll be fine.
London exists in this little spectrum where like they're a little bit streaky, and they can go from being insanely good with these big hero plays and just taking games away from teams that could and should beat them, to being just really solid, which when the lower end of your spectrum is still a really solid team, that's why you get as far as London did. But that's their problem, is that they still exist in the spectrum where any given day they play, they could either be completely on fire or just smoldering, still hot, still a great team, but just not performing to their peak. And if they can get a coach to come in and prevent that streakiness and kind of push them towards the high end of the spectrum, London's going to be a second New York XL. They're going to have that consistency. They're going to have the skill, and it's someone to be afraid of.
Their floor is very good, and their ceiling is also very good. Now they need to shift both of them up at the same time.
Yes,
that's what I'm throwing out there.
Yeah,
I agree.
So we're almost half an hour over. So I'm not going to like cold cut or anything. I'm going to ask one more question here. Okay. Of these 5 teams, except London, so Atlanta, Boston, Florida, and Houston, who makes the most stage playoff appearances?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna say Atlanta. I think Atlanta has a higher ceiling than Houston to perform at a higher level to get into the stage playoffs and compete and possibly win. I just don't see Houston getting to a lot of stage playoffs. I see them being, up there all the time. I'm going to let Norchetta prepare all he needs to here.
I know what he's doing.
I think they'll prepare, but I see Atlanta in the end having more of that high ceiling to take the stage playoffs. So I'm guessing you're going to say Boston, Norchetta.
Boston is absolutely my no. Between these teams, not counting London, absolutely for sure I'm going to say Atlanta, both for bias and for trying to be unbiased. I think that honestly, if I'm trying to be unbiased about this, comes a lot from not knowing the team as well. It has to do with the potential that they could pull out. Potentially, I absolutely think they could compete at the higher level against these teams, but it really comes down to those communication issues and if they can get them worked out. But yeah, as far as absolute mechanical skill and potential, yes, I say Atlanta.
Okay, what's the new stage playoff system again, by the way? Is it the top 16? Is it still top 4? Because I know they changed, like, end-of-season playoffs format, but I don't remember if they changed the stage playoff format. Because that will heavily factor into how many times I think each of these teams will make playoffs. Like, I think Atlanta and Houston will reach top 4 at least twice. I think Boston will reach top 6 at least twice.
Wow.
Actually, wow. I don't know. That's kind of hot. I don't know about that one.
That is a hot take.
Yeah, even as I made it, that might be a bit too hot.
Someone clip that.
I think they approached playoffs once, and they're like a game away. Right? They need to win their last game, or maybe their fate is in another team's hands at least once. Whether or not they make it, no idea. But I think Boston will get close one time. 2 would be generous, but we'll see. I think Houston and Atlanta will tie. I think they will each make it to stage playoffs at least 2 times and probably face off, which is going to be an interesting matchup right there.
Yeah.
Like Gator versus Muma, Enlair versus Lynxer.
If we come up against Atlanta versus Houston in one of the stage playoffs, I may have to risk my Houston jersey. If we win, I'll burn it on stream or something.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. They're dead to me.
Damn.
They're dead to me.
You animal. Well, on that happy note, I think that was a really they're dead to me is a really great way to end the show tonight.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
So next week we're going to be continuing our Atlantic Division coverage. We're in the Atlantic Division, right? Yeah.
Yes.
With NYXL, Paris Eternal, Philadelphia Fusion, Toronto Defiant, and Washington Justice. There's a lot to talk about with each of those teams. A few expansion teams in there, so super exciting. we hope you will be with us next week. We'll have someone on the show with Thibble and I. Norchetto, thank you so much for being on the show with us. You're incredible, providing the best Atlanta coverage out there right now. No questions. So thank you for doing that.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I had a lot of fun. And let it rain.
That won't be the last time for sure.
Absolutely.
So
Closing
keep
thoughts
an
from you
eye
guys?
out. Just as mentioned, there will be news from me. Some of it will have to do with me. I've got a couple things potentially in the works talking about Toronto Academy, which will be appropriate because we're talking about Toronto next week. Working on some Washington-centric coverage. I really want to step into that. I like the team a lot, despite all the flack they get this offseason. So keep an eye on that. It could potentially affect the nature of the show next week. We'll see how that goes as well. But beyond that, just please keep clicking on our stream and our links and all the things and giving us bread because I got to eat.
We need that bread. All right, guys.
Bread is good.
Thank you so much for sticking with us for this extended show. We'll try and get it done quicker next week. But thank you, guys, and we will see you around.